Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With Season 3 Reloaded, we obviously saw a major meta update for Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2 as well. Now, for Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer specifically, things were a bit different because a lot of the patch notes had to do with changing the armor damage, and that is Warzone specific. So you kind of have to sift through the patch notes to see what exactly changed in multiplayer. And today, we are taking all the new meta update changes, all the weapon balancing, and adjusting our ultimate tier list of all the weapons in the game for, again, multiplayer specifically. If you're interested in the Warzone side of things, I did cover the actual Warzone specific tier list a few days back, as well as the top 10 best loadouts. So feel free to go and check out those videos. But first things first, with a new, seasonal update, we do have two new weapons to go ahead and rank with the F-Tac Siege and the GS Magna. Now, quite frankly, the Magna is kind of a joke. I think it's going to be average at best. And keep in mind, the tier is average, but that's more of like a, it's average kind of rating, not the average. Obviously, the majority of our weapons, because of the fast TTK, are top tier and competitive. Average is more of like mediocre, if you will, for what it's worth. But the GS Magna, though, is not any better than the 50 GS, really. It's still visually rough to use because the recoil and the kick is very obnoxious. It's slow if you want low visual recoil. It's just not really a weapon that's going to be all that serious in the meta. It's more just to mess around with and have fun with. The F-Tac Siege, however, top tier easily, I would say. Really, I should place it next to the other SMGs because that's what it is. It's a pistol, but I mean, when you throw on a 50 round drum or a 72 round drum and you kit it for mobility, this thing is flying and frying. Ridiculously fun, ridiculously competitive right now. Very, very strong option in the overall multiplayer meta. But aside from the new weapons, obviously, as mentioned, we got a bunch of weapon tuning here to some very specific weapons that are, of high usage right now. So going through my handy dandy list of all the changes, first up, we got the BAS-P, which is currently, in my opinion, just a competitive SMG, similar to the Mini Bach and the Hurricane. And the BAS-P got a pretty hefty buff with Season 3 Reloaded. It got an ADS buff. It got a headshot multiplier nerf, which is what it is. Then it got a max damage buff, a max range buff, a mid to far damage and range buff, and a minimum damage and range buff as well. So pretty much all areas got buffed here with the BAS-P outside of the headshot multiplier, which makes it even more competitive now. That said, in the close range where, an SMG is going to be built for, it doesn't quite get to the level of the MP5 or the Vel or even the Fennec right now, or the Vaz, or, P90, so on and so forth. So I don't think it makes the jump into top tier yet. It is right there on the edge, though. Certainly better than the Hurricane and the Mini Bach, but still, in my opinion, maybe just a little underwhelming in the close range to be considered a top tier weapon, right? So very good, though, regardless, after this update, and definitely a weapon I would recommend trying if you haven't yet, because you're probably going to be surprised, because the BAS-P was one of the worst subs in the game, and now it's really making a name for itself in a lot of areas. Now, speaking of other SMGs, the Vaznev did see a max damage range nerf, which means its close range got nerfed. Its damage drop-off is going to happen a little bit sooner, but quite frankly, the nerf was not all that severe. It's going to be hardly noticeable in game, especially considering the Vaznev already had one of the steeper drop-offs in the close range. It's gonna not really be all that different, and in my opinion, it's still gonna be a top tier SMG right now. This is another curious one, the Hemlock, which currently I have as a top tier rifle as is, just because, M4, pretty easy, a little bit more versatile, 74 U's there, 7.62, maybe we could have a conversation about, we'll get to that in a minute. But Hemlock, max damage nerf, mid damage nerf, minimum damage nerf, extremity multiplier nerf, lower torso multiplier buff. So primarily nerfs for the Hemlock. This is really gonna bring it more in line with a lot of the other rifles, though, in my opinion. The TAC 56, the Lockman, the Cast-Off 545, the STB. It's basically bridging the gap in between these and making a lot of the rifles pretty much on an equal tier in a lot of ways. And it really just comes down to feel. If you like the control of the Hemlock more, or maybe the TAC 56 more, just depends on what you're the most comfortable with. But Hemlock's still gonna be a fantastic choice. I don't think it's absolute meta, but easily a top tier great option. Now, this is kind of an interesting one, bit of a bummer one, honestly. The Cast-Off 545, which is not a weapon many players are using, did actually catch a slight nerf here. It got a close to mid-range damage range nerf, so its damage drop-offs are going to be a bit steeper now, and it also got a mid damage range nerf. So essentially, this thing's range just got, torched a little bit for no real reason. The 545 wasn't a serious threat or anything. The more I'm looking at this, I wonder if the 545 should just be a competitive rifle as opposed to being a top tier rifle. And I think With this nerf, it's not crazy, but as I look at the list and I see what else is top tier, I'm taking the Lockman, the STB, the Hemlock attack over the 545 every day of the week right now still. Now the 762 actually did see a minor nerf here in season 3 reloaded. It got a extremity multiplier nerf. So if you're hitting the hands or the feet here, it's going to be a little bit weaker. That's not a huge impact though. It's still a very forgiving weapon, insane power, especially over range. It's pretty much the most powerful rifle, and that in my opinion makes it absolute meta still. All you got to do is master the recoil here and you're going to outgun most enemies. By the way, as we are breaking everything down today with all the changes, quick reminder, if you guys are new here, every day I'm your one-stop shop for all things going on in COD, news, updates, meta breakdowns, you name it, it's all right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. And if you guys enjoyed this video, if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. And quick shout out to my friends over at G Fuel. They are dropping some crazy collabs as of lately. They got a Spider-Verse collab out. They've done some Naruto stuff recently. Really cool stuff going on over there. If you ever want to grab anything at all from the site, code Immortal gets you 20 to 30% off your entire orders. So throw that in at checkout, get yourself a nice little discount there. Link for that will be down in the description below. Now next up, I mean, the Lockman 556 is already in top tier. I don't think this buff makes it absolute meta, but this is something that I really want to keep my eye on because the Lockman 556 is on the rise, ladies and gentlemen. It got a close to mid damage buff, a max range buff, and an upper torso multiplier buff. So this thing just got even more effective. It's already essentially the lowest recoil rifle in the game. Really something that I think a lot of players are sleeping on right now, but it is actually going to be holding its own in a lot of fights here, especially after this update. Maybe before this patch, you could argue it was just competitive. Well, now it's definitely in that top tier range. This is one that, you know, might have some players feeling good finally. The M16, our lone rifle down in the average tier. It got a close to mid damage range buff, a max range buff, and it now has faster bursts. And quite frankly, I feel it's time that we jump the M16 up into competitive. At least for multiplayer. In Warzone, still trash. But here in multiplayer, with the faster TTK, you can get away with the M16 now in a competitive sense if you are a decent player, whether you're in semi-auto or burst, whatever the case may be. It can hold its own because it has seen a handful of buffs sort of stack on top of each other now. It's getting better. It's still not close to being top tier though. Like, it's competitive, but it's at the bottom of the competitive category if they were actually, like, you know, all listed out here. Another change that's piquing my interest, the M13 got an ADS buff. Every range and every damage drop off got buffed, and the hip spread accuracy got buffed. The problem is that, you know, with this TTK, this fire rate, it's you know, ultimately not going to be as good as some other options here and there. It's mainly for long ranges, but it's still a really good rifle. It just got even better. Absolute top tier choice still, even more competitive now with the Hemlock, with the tack, so on and so forth. You know, close to jumping up to absolute meta, but with this TTK again in multiplayer, things like the 762 or the M4 are really going to stand out. And quite frankly, next up we got the TAC 56, which actually did see a max damage range nerf, a close range nerf, so its damage drop-offs going to be a little bit quicker, but really, I feel like this one probably should be in absolute meta. I mean, this and the Vaznev are the top choices for the CDL. I think that sort of speaks for itself, right? Another big upgrade, the SO14 got a lower torso multiplier buff, but also a max damage buff for close range. And quite frankly, I feel like the SO14's gotta jump up into the top tier category right now. This thing has a ridiculously good TTK in full auto mode. It takes a bit of getting used to. You know, you learn that recoil pattern in full auto, it's a little bit more noticeable, but after that, you're good to go. This thing's TTK is wild right now. I mean, the EBR also very good, spammable, but limited on ammo. FTAC Recon, spammable as well. It's right up there now with the Cronin Squall, the FTAC Recon, the SO14. These are ridiculously good guns. And the SO14, again, slept on, but something that is gonna fry you if you're not, you know, aware of what's coming at you in the gunfight. And then I'm not sure why these changes happened, but they happened. The Bryson 800 and the Bryson 890 each got the same buff here. They got mid damage increased. These shotguns are still ridiculously underwhelming. The broadside is far and away the best shotgun, and quite frankly, I don't even know if it's still top tier. I'd probably drop this one down into competitive after all the you know, nerfs that it's seen recently. So some somewhat irrelevant shotgun buffs there that won't make a huge impact on the meta. Those are all the changes that happen with this update. I do want to amend a few things here as we continue to look at this list. Cronin Squall, I think, deserving of jumping into the absolute meta category, whether it's full auto or semi-auto. This thing's going to absolutely fry and is arguably the most dominant weapon in the game right now. And then also the Lockman 762, I feel like, has to jump up into top tier as well. Excuse me. Blockman 762, I mean, especially if you put it in full auto, it also has a ridiculous TTK. So, you know, that, the SO14, the Cronin Squall, they are, you know, weapons that have a higher skill gap because if they're in semi-auto, they're not the easiest to use, but if you use them effectively and you're a really good player, you can just dominate with them. But that being said, that's how the MW2 multiplayer meta shakes out right now. I mean, it is extremely diverse. When you have a TTK this fast, that's going to be the situation. So many different weapons are usable, which is solid for sure. There are some standouts though in, you know, respective ranges up close. The 74U, the Chimera, the P90, the Vaz are going to be frying. Over range, TAC 56, M4, 762, Cronin Squall. Pick your poison. They're all incredible. But that's going to wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications to always stay up to date with everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I will catch you guys later. Peace out.